Think about this for a moment. You hear a sound behind you and instantly your mind reacts. You don't stop to analyze it. You don't wait for evidence. You don't ask questions. Your brain already decided what it means. A message left unseen, a silence in a conversation, a random look from a stranger. In seconds, your mind builds a story, not because it is accurate, but because it feels necessary. The brain doesn't wait for reality. It fills the gap first. And here's the uncomfortable part. Most of what you react to every day is not reality itself, but the meaning your brain creates for you. Today, we're not talking about imagination. We're talking about survival, and why your brain creates meaning even when nothing is really there. The human brain has one deep discomfort: uncertainty. Silence feels wrong. Randomness feels unsafe. The unknown feels threatening. From an evolutionary perspective, uncertainty was dangerous. If something moved in the dark, waiting for confirmation could get you killed. So the brain learned a shortcut. Instead of waiting, it assumed. Instead of observing, it interpreted. Meaning became a survival tool. Even today, your brain would rather believe a wrong explanation than sit with, "I don't know." Because "I don't know" creates anxiety. Meaning reduces that anxiety. This is why silence feels uncomfortable. This is why unanswered messages feel heavy. This is why we struggle with ambiguity. The brain rushes to close the gap. It asks, "What does this mean?" before it asks, "Is this even true?" And it doesn't do this consciously. By the time awareness arrives, the story is already formed. You don't choose the interpretation. You notice it. This is why many thoughts feel convincing. They don't arrive as questions. They arrive as conclusions. The brain says this must mean something. Not because it does, but because uncertainty feels worse than being wrong. In that sense, meaning is not about truth. It's about emotional stability. Your mind would rather give you a flawed explanation than leave you in the discomfort of not knowing. And this mechanism, as useful as it once was, now quietly shapes how you experience modern life. The human brain is not designed to see reality as it is. It is designed to detect patterns. From the earliest moments of human survival, recognizing patterns meant staying alive. A shape in the dark, a repeated sound, a movement that didn't belong. Seeing a pattern early was more important than being accurate. This instinct never disappeared. Your brain still scans everything you experience, searching for connections, relationships, and meaning. Even when none exist. That's why we see faces in clouds. That's why we connect unrelated events. That's why coincidences feel intentional. The brain doesn't ask, "Is this real?" It asks, "Does this fit a pattern?" And once a pattern feels familiar, it becomes convincing. This is where meaning begins to form. Not from reality itself, but from recognition. The brain takes fragments of information and completes the picture automatically. This process is called pattern completion. It fills in what's missing based on what it expects to see. And expectations are powerful. They shape perception before logic ever arrives. You don't perceive first and interpret later. Interpretation happens instantly. By the time you are aware, the pattern is already there. This is why many thoughts feel sudden, but fully formed. They don't appear as raw data. They appear as conclusions. The brain says, "This reminds me of something, so it must mean this." And once meaning is assigned, emotion follows. Fear, hope, suspicion, attachment. The pattern becomes reality in your mind. This is also why different people can experience the same situation and walk away with completely different interpretations. They are not reacting to the event. They are reacting to the pattern their brain constructed. And here's the critical part. The brain does not care if the pattern is true. It cares if the pattern is coherent, if it fits with past experience, if it reduces uncertainty, if it feels complete. A false pattern that feels complete is often preferred over an incomplete truth. This is how meaning becomes convincing. Not because it is accurate, but because it feels whole. And once the brain locks onto a pattern, it becomes difficult to unsee it. Every new detail gets filtered through it. The mind starts collecting evidence to support the story it already created. This is how interpretation solidifies. And slowly, what started as a guess begins to feel like reality itself. The most important thing to understand is not that the brain creates meaning. It's that it does so automatically. There is no pause, no permission, no conscious choice. Meaning appears instantly, before logic, before reflection, before awareness. By the time you notice a thought, the interpretation has already happened. This is why reactions feel sudden. You don't decide to feel offended. You don't choose to feel anxious. You don't plan to overthink. The story arrives complete. A look becomes rejection. Silence becomes judgment. A small mistake becomes a reflection of who you are, not because these meanings are true, but because the brain connected the dots before you had a chance to intervene. Awareness comes late. It observes what the mind has already constructed. This delay is subtle, but it changes everything. We like to believe that we think first and feel later. In reality, feeling often comes first, and thinking arrives to justify it. The mind doesn't ask, what is actually happening? It asks, what does this remind me of? Past experiences, memories, emotional patterns. These become the lens through which the present moment is interpreted. And because this process is automatic, it feels personal. It feels like me. But automatic does not mean accurate. Many meanings are inherited from the past, from childhood, from unresolved emotion, from repetition. The brain prefers familiar stories, even painful ones, over unfamiliar uncertainty. This is why the same thoughts return, not because they are important, but because they are known. And repetition gives them authority. The more often a meaning appears, the more real it feels. Eventually, you stop questioning it. The interpretation becomes identity. I am like this. This always happens to me. This is how people see me. What started as a moment becomes a narrative, and once a narrative forms, the mind protects it. Evidence is collected. Contradictions are ignored. Alternatives are dismissed, not out of logic, but out of emotional consistency. The brain is not trying to deceive you. It is trying to maintain coherence. Meaning becomes automatic because coherence feels safe. And safety for the brain is more important than truth. At this point, an important question appears. If meaning is created automatically, then what are we actually experiencing? Reality itself, or the mind's interpretation of it? Most of us assume that we see the world directly, but what we experience is already filtered by memory, by expectation, by emotional history. The brain does not present raw reality. It presents a version that makes sense to it. This is why two people can live through the same moment and remember it differently. Not because one is lying, but because interpretation already shaped perception. Meaning is not added after experience. It is built into the experience itself. By the time awareness arrives, reality has already been translated. This leads to a deeper philosophical problem. If everything we experience is filtered through interpretation, then how close are we ever to reality as it truly is? Are we responding to what happens, or to what we believe is happening? The mind creates a model of the world, a simplified version, a story that feels coherent, and we live inside that story. This is not a mistake, it is a necessity. Reality is too complex, too fast, too overwhelming to experience directly. So the brain compresses it. It removes ambiguity. It fills gaps. It smooths uncertainty. What remains feels solid, convincing, real, but it is still an interpretation. This is why meaning feels personal, why it feels like truth, why it feels difficult to question. Questioning meaning feels like questioning reality itself. And yet, many conflicts, internal and external, are not about reality. They are about clashing interpretations. Different stories, different patterns, different meanings. When we confuse interpretation with truth, we stop listening. We stop observing. We stop being curious. We defend our version of reality as if it were reality itself. Understanding this changes something fundamental. It introduces distance, a small but powerful space between what happens and what it means. In that space, awareness becomes possible. Not to erase meaning, but to see it forming. And seeing meaning form is the first step toward freedom from it. This mechanism doesn't stay in the abstract. It shapes everyday life. Most emotional reactions are not reactions to events, but reactions to meaning. A message arrives later than expected. The event is neutral. The meaning is not. The mind fills the gap. They don't care. I said something wrong. I'm being ignored. The reaction feels justified, but it is built on interpretation, not fact. The same happens in conversations. A tone is misread, a pause is assumed, a look becomes a judgment. The mind doesn't wait. It completes the story instantly. This is why misunderstandings feel so real, because the meaning was already there before clarity had a chance to arrive. Overthinking is not overthinking. It is the mind repeatedly checking a meaning it already created, looking for confirmation, looking for safety, looking for closure. The brain returns to the same interpretation because uncertainty feels worse than repetition. Even negative meaning can feel familiar and stable. This mechanism also shapes how we see ourselves. A small failure becomes a pattern. A single moment becomes an identity. I always mess things up. This is just how I am. The mind connects moments across time and creates a narrative. And once a narrative exists, every new experience is filtered through it. Success is minimized, failure is highlighted, neutral moments are ignored. Not because reality demands it, but because the pattern does. Meaning does not just interpret life. It organizes it. It decides what we notice, what we remember, what we forget. And most of this happens without awareness. This is why awareness is not passive. It is disruptive. The moment you notice meaning forming, the automatic process slows down. Not because the thought disappears, but because it loses authority. You begin to see reactions as signals, not truths, stories, not facts. And that small shift changes how life is experienced, not by controlling thoughts, but by no longer being controlled by them. If meaning forms automatically, then what is left for us? The answer is not control, and it is not stopping thoughts. It is awareness. Awareness does not fight meaning. It does not argue with it. It does not try to replace it. It observes it. The moment a thought appears, awareness notices. This is a story. This is an interpretation. This is a pattern forming. Nothing is pushed away. Nothing is forced to change, and yet something shifts. The meaning loses its grip, not because it disappears, but because it is no longer believed automatically. Awareness creates distance, a small space between the event and the reaction. Inside that space, choice becomes possible. Not the choice of what thought appears, but the choice of whether to follow it. This is why awareness feels subtle, quiet, almost invisible. It doesn't announce itself, but it changes everything. When awareness is present, thoughts still arise, emotions still move, but they pass through instead of taking over. The mind continues doing what it does. Patterns still form, meaning still appears, but you are no longer trapped inside it. You are watching it happen. This is not detachment from life. It is deeper participation, because you begin to experience moments without immediately turning them into stories. A look becomes just a look. Silence becomes just silence. A thought becomes just a thought. And in that simplicity, clarity appears, not as an answer, but as openness. This is where many traditions, philosophical and scientific, quietly meet. Not in belief, not in ideology, but in observation. Understanding how meaning forms doesn't remove it. It frees you from mistaking it for reality itself. So here's the quiet realization. Your brain creates meaning to protect you, to reduce uncertainty, to create coherence, to help you navigate the world. It is not your enemy, but meaning is not truth. It is a model, a story, a useful shortcut. The moment you see it forming, you gain freedom from it. Not by rejecting it, but by not being owned by it. So the next time your mind tells you a story, pause. Ask yourself, is this what's happening? Or is this what my brain is making it mean? That single question can change how a moment unfolds. If this exploration resonated with you, share your perspective in the comments. Not conclusions, not answers, just what you noticed. Because awareness grows not in certainty, but in questioning.